Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, folks. Welcome to our holiday version of the Marketing Your Practice podcast. This episode is coming to you from beautiful Noosa up in Queensland. You might notice it's a little bit more echoey, and this is a different environment. So if you're listening to it, you might notice it's a little bit more echoey, but the amazing Jason will do his best to take some of the echo out. But if you're watching this, you'll see this is not my normal home study studio. So we are feeling very blessed at the moment. Last week, Lauren and I would have a holiday. Well, we are still having a holiday up in Queensland, our baby moon. I think I was talking to you about it in episode 210 about how excited I was. Now, when this was happening, Melbourne went back into another snap lockdown because of the virus. And we had one of two choices, either go back to Melbourne and be locked in our house there and unable to really work, or stay up here in the sun. So we decided to stay up here in the sun. So we had an extended holiday. So we're feeling very grateful that we're up here. But anyway, it means that I'm going to record this episode. So a real lemonade from lemons situation. So for all of you Victorians back there in Melbourne, Australia, that were doing it tough, thank you. Our hearts are with you. We appreciate you guys a lot. Last week in episode 210, I introduced you to the work of Albert Mehrabian. He's a professor from UCLA. He's the one that's done a lot of interesting work in around communication, particularly the different elements that go into effective communication. He showed that about 7% of the communication's impact and effect comes from the actual words that we're saying, that somewhere in around 38% of it comes from the tone of our voice, the pitch of our voice, the speed of our voice. And the vast majority of it, around about that 55%, comes from body language, posture, breathing rate. It comes from really who we are behind the message. Now, you might remember in episode 210, I was talking to you about the belief that new patients come to you because they need you more than you need them. That when you take on that belief and that you polarize your glasses, you'll start to see new patients everywhere. That in essence, what you start to become is less needy. And that for almost the first decade in my practice, I was obsessed about new patients. Where's the next new patient going to come from? In essence, you could think of it that I was needy for new patients. Now, it's got me thinking about a lot of it because the way that we show up is incredibly important. And some of the questions you might be having is, am I needy for new patients? Because you might say no. But many of the times when I see how my coaching clients are showing up on social media, is they're showing up in a needy way. And so I put together a bit of a list. I had some time down on the beach the other day there too. And this list here might help you see, are you using social media to actually serve your community? Or are you using social media to get your own needs met? As I mentioned beforehand, if deep down you're going to social media because you want your needs met, that will come through in every message that you put forwards. Doesn't matter how fancy your camera is, doesn't matter how beautiful your script is, but if you're going there because you need approval from social media, that might be one of the reasons why you're not getting results. So I've got a few things I've written down here and I want to talk to you about how they might show up, and then at the end, I'll give you some solutions. I'll talk about how it impacts me a little bit there as well. So the first thing to think about, that if you're going there to serve your community, you will learn from how many people watch your video, how many likes, the comments, the engagement from it. You'll learn from it, but you won't obsess about it. If you're going to social media for your needs to actually be served, then you'll find yourself checking in multiple times each and every day. Has anyone liked my video? How many views has it got? You'll be frustrated if it's got less views than last week, and maybe you'll be elated if you're getting more views than next week. Now, this doesn't mean that the views aren't important. I'm chatting with a great chiropractor at the moment who does some amazing work with kids. And in some of the reels that he's doing, he's noticed that when he talks about tongue ties, like it gets double the views of anything else. And so we would want to learn from this information and continue to make content in around the ideas that our community wants to see. So it's not about ignoring the content, but we want to use it as information to guide us forward. So if we're going there to serve, we use it as information, as knowledge to guide us forwards. If we're going there to get our needs met or to be served from social media, then we're likely obsessing and checking in each and every day. We're using the engagement and the response of the video really to validate who we are as human beings. When we're going there to social media and when we're using social media to serve our community, we'll find that we will be inspired by the results of others. Now, this is an interesting thing. So if you happen to be scrolling through your feed and maybe you see another chiropractor in your town or somewhere else who just looks like they're knocking it out of the park. They've got a bunch of followers, they're making these amazing videos, they seem to be having great success. Do you feel inspired by them, or do you feel envious of them? Two things, do you feel envious or inspired? Now, if you feel inspired by them, this is what comes from a service mindset, this is what comes from a growth mindset, because it'll be like, wow, she's doing incredible things. I can learn from her and I can do those same things myself. If you're feeling envious, then the background story of envy really is that that person has something that you don't have now and you can't get it in the future. And this tends to be the way that people show up if they're going to social media to get their needs met. They're envious of people that are more successful than them, and then maybe they might look down on those people that are less successful. So again, if you're going to social media to serve your community, you'll really be inspired by the results that other chiropractors are getting around you. But if you're finding yourself envious, then that might be time to have a bit of a reality check. Why are you envious? Are you telling yourself that person can do something that you can't do? The third thing that I notice in my clients that are really all about that service headspace is they're really consistent with their content. If it's not once a week, it's certainly once a fortnight. They're making videos, they're showing up, they're interacting all the time. Whereas those of my clients that are perhaps having a bit more of a hard time, that are going there to have their needs met, they're really up and down. If they're feeling positive and excited and enthusiastic, they're creating loads of content. And then a few weeks later, if they're on a downward spiral, maybe their last video didn't do great, maybe they haven't had any new patients for a while there too, they can disappear, sometimes for weeks, but often for months as well. So how does that impact you? Are you consistent? Because people who are all about service, whether they're happy or they're sad, they're going to show up each and every week. They're going to be there for their patients. So service people are consistent. Those that are going there to have their needs met by social media are very, very inconsistent as well. Those people that are all about service are very generous. They're generous not only with how consistent they're showing up, which is what I talked about before. They're generous with their time and engaging with their audience, but they're also generous in the content that they're sharing. They're really, really happy to share their best stuff because they want to serve. What I see from some people, particularly in the early days of getting into this social media marketing, video marketing game, is that they tend to hold back, and instead of being generous, they're needy. They don't want to give all their best stuff away. They have a real scarcity mindset. It comes across in all the things that we talked about before. But instead of teaching all of their best content, they'll hold back a bit. I've mentioned to you beforehand about a chiropractor I was working with, really lovely guy, who was teaching some amazing stuff in around to help people with their knees. And he was going through, and you could see the journey he was going through, and then all of a sudden he just stopped with his video. And I remember reaching out to him saying, you haven't kind of finished off the end part of the video. And his mindset was, if I teach all of this best stuff and their knees feel really great, they'll never come in and see me. Now, this is a real scarcity mindset. It comes from, particularly if we're, the background story of it is that if I'm not really generous in what I'm doing, no one will come and see me. Now, the exact opposite is true here. The more generous, the more people whose problems that we solve, the more trust that we build, the more authority, and people will start to think themselves, man, if this person is prepared to give me all this stuff for free, what must it lead like to go in and work with them one-on-one? The highest, when we're kind of working our way up a value ladder, the highest level of value in many cases in service businesses is working with our clients one-on-one. We're in such a fabulous position as chiropractors in that the one thing that we can't do over our social media, over our videos, through our website is actually adjust people. I haven't worked out how to do that just yet. So we've always got that to go back there too. So ask yourself, are you giving away, are you sharing the absolute best that you have to share? And if you're not, and you're finding yourself that you're being a little bit kind of needy, I want to encourage you that, we've talked about this time and time again. One of the guiding principles of my life is a quote from Zig Ziglar that says that if you can just help enough other people get what they want, you'll get everything that you want in life as well. He says it a bit cooler like that, but that's the gist of what's going on for me too. Here's the interesting thing as I was writing down these notes, is that those of my clients that are really all about serving their community are really happy to create B- content. I've talked to you about that a little bit of recent. B- content. And those people that are using social media to have their own needs met, they're tending to want to try and create A+ content. Their content has to be perfect, because if it's not perfect, they'll get judged. But the end result of it, interesting enough, that when we're trying to create A+ content all the time, is that we end up creating no content. More often than not, I've said this to you, if the goal of trying to create perfect content, if it ever worked, I would be all about encouraging you to do that. But more times than not, when we're focusing on creating A+ perfect content, we never get started, or we get completely overwhelmed. But it's interesting, isn't it? It's perhaps different to what most of you might think, is that those people that are all focused on serving their community, they want to be out there each and every week. They know the most important thing is that they need to get something out there, that done is better than perfect. So chiropractors who are really consistent in using social media to serve their community are really happy to create B- content. It doesn't have to be perfect. Whereas those that are trying to get their needs met, that are trying to show up as this perfect individual, are obsessed about trying to create perfect content, which in most cases never lets them get started in the first place as well. When we're using social media to serve our community, to solve people's problems, it also brings out a level of immunity with regards to the haters as well. If somebody shows up and doesn't like your content, questions you, or you know what, is just downright rude, because we're doing something that's much bigger than us, we're much more likely to have that Teflon coat on and it'll just brush straight off us. But if I'm using social media to get my own needs met, and it's all about me, and I'm looking for how many likes I get, what engagement, how far did my post actually reach there too, and then I get some haters, then that can be really devastating. That can stop me in my tracks, and it means I can push this social media to the side, and sometimes it can be weeks, months, or maybe that's the last time that you will create a video. So we've talked through a few. Let me give you a really quick summary of how they show up. Those people that are using social media to serve their community, they learn from the post. If they get lots of likes, they learn from that. And if they don't get lots of likes, they learn from that as well. But it's not a reflection of their value as a human being. Those people that are using social media to serve their community are inspired by other people's results. If they see somebody doing something fantastic, they're inspired by it, they can learn from it, and they tell themselves, wow, that's working great. I wonder if I could do that as well. Those people that are using social media to serve their community are really consistent, and they're generous with their content. They're giving away their best stuff and they're showing up all the time. At least, I recommend every week, but at least every second week as well. When we're using social media to serve our community, we're really happy with B- content because we want it out there. We know that B- content will help our community get a result. And every time we're creating content that helps them to get a result, we build authority and trust. We have more people know us. We've talked about that in previous episode. And then finally too, those people that are using social media to serve their community, when it comes to the haters, okay, they don't get obsessed about it, okay? I'm not saying that it doesn't have any impact on them at all, but they don't dwell on that. Now here's the thing. Perhaps you might find that in amongst this list, that there's some areas where you're really showing up to serve and some that you go, oh, I'm a little bit needy in those areas there too. And I know for me, this changes for me sometimes on a weekly basis and sometimes throughout the day, depending on what else is going on. Most of the time now, I've been doing this for a while, one of the things that helps me get over the hurdles, the difficulties, is that I constantly obsess about serving. Chiropractors, my brothers and sisters out there, I love this profession so much. I see the beautiful work that we do, and it just needs to get more into the hands of other people. But there are times when I get a little bit needy too. So if you're finding yourselves from time to time getting a little bit needy, don't beat yourself up. Understand, coming back to this list, reminding yourself that there's somebody out there who needs you to step out beyond yourself. There's somebody there who has a health challenge that you have the absolute solution to. So, folks, check in where you're on that scale of the, am I there to serve or am I using social media to serve me? I hope this has been helpful. Until next time, thanks for all that you do. Keep saving lives. See you back here real soon. Bye. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come and check out the Community Influencer Program. It's my monthly coaching program where we take all this material and I'll work one-on-one with you to apply, implement, systematize, and help guide you and your practice to the next level. Now you can join me on over at adiomedia.com/join. That's adiomedia.com/join. I'd love to see you in there.